Keep looking at me.
Put the camera.
You gonna do it all right?
Good.
This way or this way?
Yeah.
You're still looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much, Masami, for that introduction. And thank you so much, Pastor Morgan, and First Lady Pastor Jennifer. I know you were out there somewhere. Thank you for having us today and offering this wonderful information to your congregation. We're very grateful. So, my name is Tyra Jacqueline. I am actually a financial literacy and specialist, educator, and influencer. But one of the biggest things I do is credit. How many of you know how important your credit is in life? Period. Well, if you don't know, it is. Okay, we call that your basically your adult report card. Your and that three number score is one of the most important scores that you're going to come across in your life. So I'm just going to give y'all a few gems today, just speaking about how important your credit is, how to develop your credit, how important it is in the home buying process. Then I got a couple more gems for y'all. So first and foremost, for those of you who do have credit, who's looking to establish credit or repairing your credit, increasing your credit scores, did y'all actually know there is a formula to how your credit is calculated? And if you can master this, you're going to master about 80% of your credit. All right, so if I can turn y'all attention to the board, because y'all don't have this piece in y'all packet today. So let's talk about payment history. That's the biggest chunk of your credit scores. And when you are looking to get a mortgage loan here that Mr. Gregory's going to talk to y'all about, this is one of the things he's looking for. Do you pay your bills on time? Y'all notice that's the biggest chunk, correct? 35%, right? And he's going to look back pretty much 2 years. Have you been paying your bills consistently on time? 35%. And this is anything you pay for. We're talking about for people who already have mortgages, your credit cards, your car notes, your personal loan. Everything you do as far as what you pay gets into this part of the formula of 35%. It's very, very important. As y'all can see, that is the biggest chunk. The next biggest chunk is what we call credit utilization, or as you see right here, it says capacity and amount owed, 30%. That actually is talking about like the credit cards. So how many of you here have heard keep your credit cards at 30%? Raise your hand for me. Y'all heard that? Can I tell y'all that's 100% incorrect? That's 100% incorrect. Let me tell you why. And I'm gonna give y'all a simple mathematical equation so you know why. So your 30% actually comes in all of your credit cards, the balances of all your credit cards compared to the actual limits of all your credit cards. Let me give you a very, very simple example. Let's say you have two credit cards, both of them have a $500 limit, right? So if you add 5 and 5, you get 1,000. We all agree? Right. So what you actually would want to do to keep you at that lovely 30%, the balances on your credit card for each of those should be no more than $150. Why? You add 150 and 150, that's 300, right? And do we agree that's 30% of the 1,000? Yes? Yes? Simple mathematical equation. Now, if you make the mistake of keeping all your credit cards at 30%, now let's do that math again. Both your credit cards limits are $500. Each of them, that's $300, right? You add 300 and 300, that's 600, right? So what is 600 of $1,000, which is that limit? That's 60%, correct? You got it? Which that will significantly reduce your credit score because of that 30%. Please understand, the higher your balances are on your credit cards, the lower your credit score will be. Guess what the actual sweet spot is for your credit cards? Under 10%. So if you are looking to purchase a home, let's keep them credit cards down, okay? Let's go to the next part, which is 15% is your length of credit.
And don't buy anything big. Do not buy anything big.
We're going to talk about that in a second. So the next chunk is your 15%, which is the length of your credit history. If it's not paid off, I don't care how long you've had it, do not close it. Do not call that, do not call Visa, Capital One, whoever you got your account with, do not close it. Say credit cards are the devil. Credit cards are not the devil. Trust me. If you use them responsibly, they will help your credit so much. Credit cards actually contribute back into your credit scores 90%. So for those of you who do not have a credit card, you are missing out 90% of your credit scores. Okay? So length of credit history, that's how long you've had these accounts. 15% is very important. 10%, credit inquiries. Do not go somewhere and keep applying and keep applying and keep applying for things. If you know you already have a low credit score or no credit at all, do not go to Ford, do not go to Honda or wherever you're going to go purchase a car and have them run your credit 30 times, because that's what happens. Do y'all know that when you go purchase a car and your credit score is bad or you don't have any credit at all, they're going to run your credit for each lender? Yeah, I done seen upwards of 60, 70, 80 inquiries on somebody's credit report because they had low to no credit. Don't do it. Because why? You look desperate for credit. And when you look desperate, nobody wants to lend to you. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So please don't do it. The next part is your types of credit, which is installment loans versus revolving loans. Installment loans are things that you have for payments that remain the same each month. For example, your car note, your mortgages, things of that nature. Revolving are credit cards. Why? Because it's basically a revolving door. You're going to pay them down, you're going to use them, you're going to pay them down, pay them, use them. Basically a revolving door. That's how I like to get people to actually remember that. So this is the formula of how your FICO score, because those are the scores that matter, how your FICO scores are calculated. If you master these factors, you're going to master about 80% of your credit. Now, how does that sound? Now, for those of you who need to build credit, there are simple ways to do that. But one thing I want you to understand, when it comes to purchasing, especially when it comes to purchasing a home, using your credit scores and your credit reports are two separate entities. However, they are husband and wife. What does that mean? They marry each other, and they need to be worked on simultaneously. When Mr. Greg come and talk to y'all about mortgages, he's just not looking at your credit scores. No, he's also looking at what's on your credit report. Your credit reports need to be clean enough to get on it. Okay, and let me give y'all an example. Say if y'all ever knew somebody that filed bankruptcy and they had a 700 credit score, but they just got out of bankruptcy 6 months ago. And then you got another friend who has a 650 with a clean credit report. Who you think Mr. Greg giving that mortgage to? That's how important it is. So please understand, when you are in this process, when you are working on your credit, keep your report clean and keep those credit scores high. This is what I do when I'm educating and when I'm consulting and counseling people when it comes to their credit. Not only do I help people clean up their credit, because people make mistakes. We just had the pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs, right? A lot of people didn't go back to work, or they didn't go back to work for a year or 2 years, something like that, because of the pandemic. So they got in trouble with their credit, or people get divorced and get in trouble with their credit. Things happen, life happens, but guess what? That is not the end, right? You can always work on yourself. You can always work on your credit, period. So what I do as an educator, I do just that. I'm gonna help you clean up your credit if you need to repair it, okay? Because credit repair is getting the bad stuff off your credit report. And I'm also gonna help you build a strong FICO credit score. And I'm saying that because people love to watch Credit Karma. And they say, oh, my credit score went up 21 points. Guess what? When Mr. Greg is lending y'all mortgages, he's not looking at Credit Karma. He's not looking at those Credit Karma scores. Because let me tell you, Credit Karma might say 700, and then you pull from the system that he uses, or if you go to myfico.com and you got a 612. Yeah. And you're not getting a mortgage with a 612 unless you got major assets in the bank. All right? So for those of you who are looking to become homeowners, building your credit, working on your credit, and keeping it good are some of the things you need to do. Why do people get in trouble with their credit in the first place? Just making bad decisions and being uneducated. And it's my job to educate you. So before I go, there's one more thing I do want to point out, because you are here to learn about being homeowners. I need y'all to understand purchasing a home is one of the most major purchase decisions you'll make in your life. It's one of your greatest assets, and you need to protect it. How do you protect those type of assets? Does anybody have an idea of how to protect that asset? Anybody can raise their hand and say something.
Pay your mortgage on time.
Yes, that's gonna keep you, that's gonna keep your house, and that's also gonna keep your credit score good. Yes, sir, in the back.
Pay your insurance on it.
Pay insurance, that's gonna be a part of your mortgage for the most part. Anybody? What about some type of legal documentation that I'm talking about here? Protecting your biggest asset? No? I'm talking about having a will. I'm talking about having a trust. I'm talking about having a power of attorney. See, one of the things I tell you, I educate, and unfortunately, a lot of us don't know how important those documents are. Not only does a will and trust and power of attorney protect you, it will also protect your family from this thing called probate court, which is very, very important. Everybody in here should have a will and trust. You should already have one. But guess what? When you go purchase that home, you need to protect it. And not a will by itself. So that's old school. We're in a new school nowadays, because that trust needs to protect that will. Why? Because wills are what's called contestable. That wife from 20 years ago might come knocking on the door like, nope, I was married to Mr. Charles for 15 years back in the day. Guess what? She might have a claim to that property. How you gonna protect it? Will and trust. So also in the packet that you have, there's a blue and white flyer. It's a protection plan. Those are some of the services that accompany my education program, which also includes that will and trust and power of attorney. And another reason why that will and trust and power of attorney is so important is because if you don't make the decisions legally the right way, the government will. Having children out of wedlock, those children belong to the state, not to you. If you say you go in a coma or something, who gonna make the decisions for you? You gonna pull that plug. If you're gonna get the blood from somebody else because you needed to save your life, who gonna make those decisions for you? Don't automatically think the hospital consult your next of kin, because what if they can't find your next of kin? That's why you need that legal documentation and say this, and this is what needs to happen. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so that's my piece today here, guys. Like I said, your credit is very important. Your finances is very important. And that's only part of the game. I'm a financial literacy educator. That's what I do, and that's what I'm here for. We have a question. Yes, sir.
So really quick, going back to the credit cards, 30%. Talk a little bit about what it means to make minimum payments on a credit card, paying interest as opposed to making an entire payment of your balance each month and not rolling over any minimum payments.
Okay, so a minimum payment is saying, okay, this is how much you need to pay based on your balance of the year. Now, paying the minimum will help you here, making sure it's on time. However, you should always be making a bigger payment than the minimum. Not necessarily means paying your balance off each month. Sometimes you don't want to do that too much because, unfortunately, the system wants to see a little bit of debt. And when you don't have at least a little bit of debt, and I don't care how much that little bit of debt is, that little bit of debt can be $5. You understand? So don't think it's some astronomical number. It can be $5. Where you're not using the debt, because that's what the system wants. That's what credit is managing debt properly. When you're not doing that, now we're talking about them. They may reduce your balance, or something like we want them to increase our balances. Eventually we want them because we want higher credit limits, right? You keep paying it off each month. What I need to get you a higher balance? What I need to give you a higher balance for? If you want to keep everything at zero each month. You understand what I'm saying? It's deep. It's deep. Trust me. And it goes very deep. So remember, 30% is the comparison of your balances to your actual limits of all your credit cards. Do not keep each credit card at 30%. Any other questions? You got one in the back.
Is it advisable to get more than one credit card?
Yes.
No.
No.
You said just have one credit card? No, not at all. 10% is your types of credit, your installment loan versus your revolving. They like to see multiple, what we call trade lines. Okay, multiple trade lines. So you can start off with one credit card, yeah, but you want to build a strong credit profile. Okay, that's the goal when it comes to credit. A strong credit profile. And you're not doing that with one credit card. And plus, remember, good credit comes with more debt, but managing the debt properly. But when you got good credit, you can do more than sometimes with people with more money with bad credit. Because credit is character. Credit is power. Okay? They
Can you
say
say that again?
Credit-
Credit is character.
credit is character and credit is power. So it's fine to start off with one card, but you want to build a strong credit profile, which eventually means you want to add some more credit cards. But you also want to get to the point where you can get top tier credit cards. Some people who don't, if you don't have credit, you got to start with subprime credit cards. That's fine, but we're building up to a strong credit profile. That's when it's bigger top tier with higher limits. That's it.
I just want to ask, is it only credit card that you give your credit? What about if you spread it, like you have a credit card, you have a car notes, and you have a home mortgage that you're paying? At least 3 of them are credits.
Yes, so that falls under your types of credit or mix of credit. So your car note, your mortgage payments, things like personal loans, those are what's called installment accounts or installment loans. Now, the reason why I do like to talk about credit cards because a lot of people get in trouble with credit cards. But credit cards are so important to your credit because without credit cards, you're missing this portion by itself. You're missing out really on 90% of your credit when you don't have credit cards. Why? Because you're missing out on good payment history. You can add another trade line or two with credit cards to add into this 35%. You won't have the 35%. You need to build the history, and you need to add that type of credit. That's the 90%. If you add 5, 30, 15, and 10. Yes, sir.
Can you speak a little bit about types of credit cards? Because they're not all the same. Some have annual fees.
Yeah. So I'll say it like this. When I'm helping somebody build up their credit scores and their credit profile, I do. So a lot of people, sometimes you got to start with a secure credit card. So if your credit is bad or you don't have any credit, you start with a secure credit card. Secure credit cards are, you have to actually put a security deposit. You have to put $100, $200, $300 depending on the card. So when I'm working with somebody who needs to build up their credit, I do not recommend cards with annual fees.
No.
Or monthly fees, because there are cards with monthly fees. And I need y'all to understand, those are the consequences of having bad credit, okay? You be like, oh, well, this is the only card that accepted me, so I took it. This card may have an annual fee, and there are secure credit cards out here and unsecured credit cards with monthly fees. We're gonna stay away from those, but that's why it's important to have someone steer you in the right direction. That's what I do as an educator and a consultant. So there are cards with higher interest rates. There's cards with annual fees. There's cards with monthly fees, but make sure you consult a professional with that. And in that blue and white, on that blue and white sheet that you have, my email and two of my telephone numbers are there for you to contact me as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Now, for me, something like payment history, capacity, and amount owed would be my major concentration. But here is the question. If you discover here that from what you have explained, that they want you to keep your credit at 30%. Now, that will attract some kind of charges. But all the time, not most of the time. There will be charges, accrued. Let's say you have 10,000 credit and you are meant to keep it at 30%. By owing. There's so much money to charges. And then another question is, I see that what gives people challenge in their credit is when you go less than that 30%. Then you can put someone in trouble. But that 30%, keeping it at 30% will attract so much money at the end of the period being considered.
So when it comes to that 30% is for all the credit cards. You want to, and like I said, the sweet spot is to keep your credit card under 10%. So it's going to be charges. You got interest rates. Remember, these are how the banks make their money because of interest rates. So yes, if you can pay them bad boys down as low as you can, but that's not always reality. Nobody's asking you to be unrealistic. Okay, that's paying them off each month. Like I said, I don't recommend that. Keep $5 more. But that's not reality all the time. People pay it off. Is it going to be fees? Interest? Yeah, that's how they make their money. That's how all banks make their money. Interest. And then we got this thing out here called inflation nowadays. It's making our interest worse, right? And this is why we have to be diligent when it comes to our financial education and how we deal with our money. And the goal is for you to have a better relationship with your finances, period. Let me tell you, Mr. Morgan here can tell it, Pastor Morgan can tell you. Because you want to have good relations everywhere. You know, we want to have our good relations with the Most High. We want to have our good relations with our spouses, all that good stuff. So I'm going to wrap this up. But the purpose of financial literacy is for you to have good relationships with your finances. My contact information is on that blue and white flyers. So I'm going to wrap it up. If you got any questions for me, please, we'll talk afterwards. I have to conclude. Thank y'all so much for having me.